Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by former undefeated British champion Lerrone Richards. How you doing?
I'm doing good, my friend. Yourself?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Lots to talk
Good.
about. You're a name very much in the news, boxing wise, at the moment. Most
Yeah.
recently, signing with Matchroom.
hmm
Just tell us how that all came about, how the talk started, and what made you decide to make this move.
Oh well, it all happened quite quick, really. Obviously, my contract ended with Frank Warren last week, and my management team, S Jam, approached Eddie Hearn, said I was available, and Eddie Hearn wanted to sign me, and it went from there. The deal was done within a day. It was very, very quick.
What was it that what were kind of the deciding factors from your point of view that made it such an easy deal to make?
If you look at the sort of super middleweight division, that in on the Matchroom stable, they got all them fringe world contenders. They got in Britain. Look how many the champions they got. They got Billy Joe Saunders, John Ryder, Callum Smith. You got um, Daniel Jacobs, Rosado. All them guys there. They can get me the big fights, and that's why I decided to sign with them.
Makes sense when you put it like that. You obviously gave up the British title without defending it. Was that a
Mhm.
hard decision? I can understand why you made it. You can tell us in a minute anyway. But was it a hard decision to make? Is the British title something you grew up kind of wanting?
Yeah, do you know what? The British and Commonwealth was the titles that that I loved. That I always used to look on TV and think, what, I'd love to hold them belts. I remember watching James DeGale and George Groves fighting for them belts and trying to unify the belts, fighting each other, and thought, what, I would love to be a champion. But yeah, it was hard. Going back to your question, it was hard for me to vacate the belt, but my goals in boxing is to be a world champion and to reach my full potential. And for me to vacate them titles, was the best option for myself and my career.
And the mandatory contender for the British at the time was Willie Hutchinson. Of course, he'll now fight Lennox Clark, who you
Yeah.
defeated for the vacant title next week.
hmm
We can talk about that fight in a minute. But how close, if at all, was a fight between yourself and Willie Hutchinson? Was that put to you at all?
No, there was no agreement made. I was training for the WBC silver. I posted a statement out, I think a few weeks before or a week before. No, not the week before. I think it was the day that Billy Hutchinson was mandated. I wrote a statement just stating the facts that I was offered the WBC silver fight after the pullout of Umar Sadiq, um, and that's what I was training for. When Willie got announced as mandatory, I was like, okay, no problem. I ain't got no problem fighting anyone in the division, but I was trying to make the best moves for myself. And where I was already offered and already agreed terms with the Warrens about fighting Uzbek, that was the direction I was taking.
And is that still going ahead, the WBC silver?
Well, no, I don't think so now. I think uh, my route always wanted to be the European. After I won the British title, I wanted to fight for the European because I've always wanted to do things a traditional way. Um, but the Warrens felt like it was best that I went down the WBC silver route, which my team agreed with. But now we're back on track. Now we've spoken to Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn wants the European title shot as much as myself and my team want it. So that's the route that we're taking.
And is that quite an easy fight to make? Has Eddie got the connections and stuff to make that pretty easily?
Well, yeah, he said that he can deliver it. So I've got faith in him that he will do so.
And do you want that for your next fight, or because you haven't been out in a little while now? Do you want to have kind of a tune-up, get back, shake any ring rust off?
Yeah, so that's the plan. I'm hoping to get out within the next few weeks now. It's not going to be like a tune-up. I don't want an easy opponent. I'm not that way inclined. So we're going to get myself a decent opponent to face, beat him, and then we'll move on to next year.
And you've been with Dave Coldwell for a little while now. Just give us a bit of a progress report on how all that's going.
Yeah, I've been with Dave Coldwell for like 6 months now. It's crazy how the years has gone by. I joined Dave Coldwell uh, just before the Umar Sadiq fight got announced. Because obviously I was out in Vegas before training with Ismail Salas.
Yeah.
Because of the coronavirus, I had to fly back. But Dave Calder was my first choice. But going back to Dave Calder, we've gelled a lot, gelled very, very well, and the future's bright. The future is bright with me and Dave Caldwell, and I'm learning so much with Dave. He's not just a coach; he's a teacher. So I'm learning a lot. Can't complain.
You were at the iBox previously. You've obviously been out to Vegas, as you said, with Salas. Is that something you'd recommend to other young fighters, that they go early in their career, go to a few different coaches just to absorb ideas from different sources?
Well, for me, I'm not really one. I won't recommend young fighters to start jumping to coach, because it's a process. I've been with Dave for 6 months. I'm lucky, that I've had this time to spend with him and gel with him. But jumping to coach, that's not the way I flex. But definitely going abroad and seeing different surroundings, sparring different fighters from different countries is a big experience, and experience you just can't buy.
Did you get a lot of variety, diversity of sparring out in the US, I'm guessing?
Oh yeah, I was sparring a lot of Mexicans, like heavyweights, cruiserweights, you name it. I was sparring out there, and the whole atmosphere was different. When you're sparring, people shouting, "Go on, go on, go on, get him, get him!" Guys shouting, outside the ring. It's a bit different from the English, sort of the way the British, scene. Well, the way it happens around Britain, but it's all a learning experience.
I bet Mexicans hated sparring you, didn't they? Like, if there's a style that an aggressive box fighter in Mexican would hate, it'd be yours, I think.
Yeah, but so it gave me an opportunity to sort of showcase, another sort of side to my boxing as well, because you can't always be boxing on the back foot. I also can fight on the front foot too, which no one has seen yet. But I'm very good at it. If not, I would say I'm better boxing on the front foot than the back foot. So I'll be very surprised when people see that.
As you are better boxing on the front foot, why do you choose to box on the back foot? Is it just because the opponents often feel that's more uncomfortable for them?
No, listen, I always think that, you've got to make things difficult for your opponent, and you've got to be able to adjust. And, if it means if my opponent's running, obviously I'm going to have to step it up and move forward. If they're coming forward, then I'll box from the back foot. So I'll win fights, whatever means necessary, in the easiest way I can.
And you mentioned earlier some of the big names in the super middleweight division, particularly those affiliated with Matchroom. Is there anyone in particular that you kind of want to work towards fighting, or a particular belt that you want to win when you get to that world level?
To be honest, look, I always want to take, one step at a time. Obviously I'm fighting in December, but, I want to be a European champion. I want to conquer Europe. I got told, one time by a wise man, there's something to learn at every level. And that's why I don't want to skip levels. I want to win the European title. And once I've won that European title, we'll see who's the champion then, and then I'll be after them.
So obviously Zach Parker, he's another one. He's on the Saunders-Murray bill, and he's chasing Saunders as well. He's another one, but I don't know if that's where you're looking, or more towards Canelo and Smith.
Well, to be honest, I haven't really been looking at these champions as of yet. Obviously I know who the champions are, and I know the qualities and what they're good at. But I want to win this European title bad, mate. And once I win this European title, then we can talk about them big names.
Now, I want to ask you for some predictions while I'm lucky enough to have you on the channel. We'll start off with the two kind of ones coming up. Let's start with Willie Hutchinson against Lennox Clark, and then match for the title that you vacated. How do you see that one panning out?
It's a good fight. We know that Lennox Clark is, battle ready. We know that he's, a tough man. With Willie Hutchinson, we know he's a skillful operator. So it's going to be a very good fight, 50-50 fight. Willie Hutchinson hasn't really boxed anyone, if we're honest. But we're going to see what he's all about against Lennox Clark. But I'll say it's a 50-50 fight. I wish them both all the best, and we'll see what happens in the future.
Right, out of 3 predictions, I'm going to allow you that one sit on the fence. So you're going to have to pick a winner for the other 2.
No problem. We'll see.
Billy Joe Saunders, Martin Murray.
Oh, Billy Joe. Billy Joe will win. I think late stoppage or points.
Okay, and Canelo Callum Smith, the big one.
It's a hard one, that. I just I wish Callum Smith all the best in that fight. We know it's a hard ask. Canelo's elite. Very, very good. But I don't know whether we've seen the best of Callum Smith yet. So once again, if it was at middleweight, I'd say Canelo, but because of the size of Callum Smith and all the attributes that he has, You know, well, I wouldn't say it's 50-50 at middleweight. No, I'll say it's more like in Canelo's favour. But we, as super middleweight with Callum Smith's size and his attributes, it's more of like a 50-50 fight. I'm going to go with Canelo.
Brilliant. And
yeah,
just talk a little bit about your ultimate ambitions. Is it win the world title and then see what happens from there, or is there a specific version of the world title, or do you want to go through the weights? What is it you want to do?
I want to be the best I can be, and how far that takes me. We'll see. Obviously, I want to be a world champion. That's the goal. But short-term goals. I want to be a European champion. I want everyone to say, by the end of 2021, that Lerrone Richards is the best in Europe, excluding all the world level fighters. And then I want people to be calling for them big fights. I want people to be saying, I want Lerrone Richards in the ring with Daniel Jacobs. I want to see Lerrone fight, Callum Smith, the John Ryders. I want people to be getting excited about them fights. I don't want to just turn up, Lerrone Richards as their opponent. I want people to look at me and think, Lerrone Richards, boy, like, this is a 50-50 fight. It's a good fight. And, hopefully, pay-per-view.
That's a good ambition to have. I mean, you laugh about it, but I think there's a lot of fighters that want to achieve pay-per-view headliner status. I think that's a valid ambition.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens.
You mentioned Danny Jacobs a couple of times. What did you make of his performance last night against Gabe Rosado?
Do you know what? I feel like it wasn't his best performance, but I think, the fact that there was no crowds, I think it kind of affected him. There's a lot of fighters out there that just can't fight without crowd. They're so used to fighting on that high level in front of, thousands of people. It's hard to adjust, It wasn't a great performance by him, but, he's got the win and he can move on.
How do you feel about fighting with no crowds?
Oh, mate, I don't care. That doesn't bother me, to be fair. Like, I've had it quite hard, in my professional career fighting, on undercards, when the doors are not even open, before the people that I've sold tickets to can get in. So it makes no difference to me.
And you said, when I asked you what your ambitions are, you said you just want to be the very best you can be, which is a laudable aim for any fighter. What are the areas you feel you still need to improve upon to get to that level?
There's a lot of things, boxing, obviously a boxing IQ, aspects of like technique. It's just a good question. It's just a matter of just being able to make adjustments, in my training. Because, even like as time's going on, as I'm becoming more of a championship fighter, I'm adding more to my team, obviously, when I was young, I didn't do much strength and conditioning training. You learn. I added a strength and conditioning coach. Started to get little niggles. Added a masseuse. Started doing yoga. So just developing and learning different ways of making me a better fighter.